So I was on my own with the kids, still wasn't feeling right. I thought I had early onset dementia. I mean, I can laugh about it now. I thought I was going crazy. Thought I had early onset dementia. Thought I was bipolar. I had all of these crazy notions. I felt really worried and lonely as well, because I wasn't talking to anybody else about it, because I just thought it was me.
From the email that you sent out a while ago, actually.
Yeah, we first connected a wee while ago, and then obviously you've been really super busy, inundated with requests, no doubt.
I mean, even so, like even now, what we're recording now, if I keep it as it is, because I keep having in my head that I want to put 2 episodes out, because I do one that's a podcast and I do a monologue as well, so they come once every week. But I think I might do 2 a week. So if I do that, this might come out by the end of the year, beginning of next one. If not, it's going to be February. I don't know when.
That's
Sometimes
okay.
so even so, I've still got like a huge log of recordings and everything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, welcome to this, whatever we call this, conversation, chat, whatever this is going to turn into. Okay. I'm very excited to have you here because from what you described in your email, it's all to do with menopause, but also your story a little bit. Your story is very interesting. So I'm very much looking forward to it because I'm 38 and I've gone through menopause.
Or have you already? Oh.
So yeah. I know there are so many factors in there as to why this could have happened so early.
Yes.
But I also want to hear from the expert, you know?
So no pressure then?
No. First of all, if we can start from anywhere, I don't know, if you would like to introduce yourself and let everybody know, everybody that's watching, listening, who you are and anything about yourself, a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so my name's Andrea and I'm officially called the Menopause-Artist.
Nice.
I'm based just outside of Glasgow in Scotland. I've lived here for an awfully long time, but I'm originally from England.
Mm-hmm.
I'm mum to 3 children who are adopted, and I've also got 3 dogs. So very busy household. And yeah, what else can I tell you? I'm on a mission to help and support women who are going through the menopause. I had a horrendous perimenopause experience 10 years ago before we were actually talking about the menopause, let alone the perimenopause. And although now we're in a much better situation in that there's far more out there on the media, social media about the menopause, still women are struggling. So I'm here to help women. But my passion is also art. So I've combined the two. And yeah, that's hence my title, The Menopause-Artist.
I love it.
And I turn 60 next year as well. So that is a big milestone. And I'm excited for it.
Congratulations. You don't look anywhere close.
Thank you. Wearing well.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Really, because it engages the youth at heart, or however you want to hold yourself. Anyway, what happened? You know, because you said perimenopause hit you in a really funny way. What exactly did you experience?
So it was about 10 years ago, and it was a really difficult phase in my life. Children were still relatively young, but I was experiencing terrible memory loss. Also, standard hot flushes, not being able to sleep, terrible mood swings. One minute I was, really happy. The next minute I was down in the dumps. And I got to the point where I was actually having very dark thoughts. I went to my GP, who was also female, and I was basically told you've got depression. So I was medicated accordingly. There was not any mention of the menopause. So I was still really, really struggling though. Yes, it helped, with my mood to an extent. I then went through a couple of difficult events in life. I lost my mum, and then 6 months later, my marriage broke down. So I was on my own with the kids, still wasn't feeling right. I thought I had early onset dementia. I mean, I can laugh about it now. I thought I was going crazy. Thought I had early onset dementia. Thought I was bipolar. I had all of these crazy notions. I felt really worried and lonely as well, because I wasn't talking to anybody else about it, because I just thought it was me. And then I saw a documentary on the TV with Davina McCall, and that was the first documentary about menopause that she did. And it was like, wow, that's exactly what's happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the advice was, go and speak to your medical professional about it, which I did. I actually spoke to the nurse, and I take a form of HRT, which helps with respect to making it less painful when I go for a cervical smear, because that's another story, going for cervical smears previously and it being excruciatingly painful. And again, nobody's saying, oh, that's because of the menopause, because your skin dries out everywhere on your body. So just the fact that I knew I wasn't going crazy, and the reason why I was feeling the way I felt, that made a huge difference. I was still experiencing the symptoms, but it made it easier to bear, because I understood.
Yeah.
And I thought, I need to help other women. That was about towards the end of lockdown, I think. And I thought, I could go onto TikTok and talk about the menopause. And I thought, nobody will want to hear about my menopause story. How wrong was I? Because obviously everybody's now talking about it. But I still wanted to help women. And then I discovered 2 years ago, or just over 2 years ago, that I'm actually quite good at art. That's another story. All these things that have happened to me in a very short space of time. So I discovered I was good at art. I started painting pet portraits, and I thought, how can I make art my career, but also help women? And that's how I combined the two to become the menopause artist. And I have a program called Menopause-Art, where I work with women, helping them understand the menopause, but also enabling them to take time out for themselves and get creative.
That's impressive. Wow. And yeah, of course, when you were saying that you didn't even know you had artistic traits, right? I totally believe that whatever you let go of in your past made room for this new venture to come up to the surface. What does it look like? What does your program look like? Because I mean, I'm trying to imagine what you would do, like talking about menopause, but art. How do you combine the two?
So the program that I've developed, it's an 8-week program. It's actually an online program at the moment, but I'm also looking to expand it to be a face-to-face program, because I love that energy of being in the room with people. I've got over 20 years experience of doing training with people in the corporate world. But I've developed 2 exercises which are actually they're quite simplistic. One is enabling you, I call it mastering the menopause. It enables you to identify what's going on in your body. There's no fancy equipment involved. It's just, using a very basic diagram. And we talk about, what's going on, and you can either colour it, whether things are happening, or you can put words down. And I encourage women to do that, so that when they go and speak to either the medical profession, or it could be that they're looking to go down the alternative therapy route, they actually know what's going on in their body. Because there's nothing worse than going to speak to your doctor, for instance, and you have a moment where you forget everything. So there's that exercise. We then do a thing called colouring the menopause, which we do at the start of the program, and then we do it again at the end of the program, and you use colour to express how you feel about the menopause. And then in between, we learn about the menopause, we learn about art. I don't have an art qualification. I'm very open about that. I'm completely self-taught, but I've always had an interest in art. So we learn a little bit about art, different styles of art, what inspires people to create. We learn about mandalas as well, and the meaning behind them. And over the 8 weeks, we create a portrait together of a flower. It's quite symbolic, the flower. Quite simplistic in approach, but I'm teaching them some techniques which they've potentially never ever encountered before using acrylic paint. And then the other thing that we do is we create a mandala, again using acrylics, but we use, to create the background, we use the paint, the waste paint we've used when we've been mixing colours. And we use that because it's a technique I use for my mandala art. I don't waste paint. I use any leftover paint for backgrounds. We do that, and then we create the mandala together, which is, it sounds complicated, but when you're actually focused on creating the mandala together, it's actually quite simple the way that they're put together, and it's great for mindfulness, just sitting and focusing on drawing that. So that's what we do over the 8 weeks. So we cover quite a bit of ground, and at the beginning I do like an assessment with each woman to see where they are, and then at the end we review and see how they're feeling, and we talk about what they can do moving forward. So yeah, that's my Menopause-Art program, because it's all about giving women time for themselves, because as women we're really bad at doing that.
Yeah.
We care about everybody else, whether it be children, partners, parents, friends, work colleagues, and then there's little old us. We think, oh, we're not worthy of any time, but we need to.
Yes. Do you do this in like a group setting, or is it one-on-one with people?
The online program is a group, because we work online using Zoom and using lives in a private Facebook community. But I'm actually thinking for 2025 of doing one-to-ones with people, just really to get them up to speed with where they are with the menopause, and increase their knowledge. And then when I run my workshops, which I'm not exactly sure of the structure of those yet, excuse me, but it will be with a group of about 8 to 12 people, because that's the sensible number to have when you're doing group training. So yeah, that's how I use art. So it's a slightly different approach to helping women with the menopause than other menopause coaches, but it's certainly an approach that works. But as I say, I'm also very knowledgeable about the menopause, because there's so much information out there. Too much.
Yeah.
Women are kind of suffering from information overload and getting a bit fed up hearing about it. So I know personally, when I get fed up about hearing about something, I don't do the research that I necessarily need to. So I'm trying to absorb all that information, disseminate it, and give it to women in manageable chunks, and giving them the really relevant information that they can then use to move forward, to embrace this time in their life. Because it's for you saying you were menopausal in your late 30s. The average woman, it's a third of their life. And we want that to be a great third of our life, because there are advantages to the menopause. But when you're in the thick of it, as I was, it can be really tough. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
I love it. I'm feeling we're gonna dissect here and there little bits, but I want to pick at what you just said about it having advantages, because besides the all the downsides of what menopause does to a woman's body, I'm not mastering it just yet, but I have a completely different view on it, because I know there are so many things, and there's a part of me that doesn't want to know too much about menopause, because when you said at the beginning, like everything dries up, I'm like, that's a belief that I don't want to have. That's really a belief that I don't want to have. And I know the power of the mind is very strong. So, but I also know that I haven't mastered that, so I can't just yet influence my body to that extent of it creating what I wanted to create or to produce. But going back to the positive aspects of menopause. What are those from your perspective anyway?
Well, from a biological point of view, you're not coping with your monthly menstruation, which can be, that can be really tough for women. I know I've got a 19-year-old daughter, and this morning she was saying, "Oh, my tummy's really, really sore, Mum." And I remember that,
Yeah.
and that fear of having accidents. And when that was something that happened to me in perimenopause. I was having these horrendous experiences of flooding, and I was frightened to go out because in case I had an accident. So that's a big advantage. I think it's also for women, it's a time to reflect and think, right, what do I want moving forward from this next phase of my life?
Mm-hmm.
You're not having to think about birth control or getting pregnant. And also, if your children have moved out, yes, potentially you suffered the empty nest feelings, but you can look and think, right, so what's it going to be like with seeing them less frequently? So yeah, well, for me, I've been through a huge number of changes, not just in terms of the menopause, but in terms of being single again and to support my children through the emotions of a family breakdown. But yeah, I just try and reframe it for women because, yeah, it can be really tough. But if you get the right support in place, if you implement the right lifestyle changes, then it can be you can have a far more positive experience. And I think it encourages you to be more healthy because it's recognized the benefits of hydrating. Obviously we know about that, we've known about that all our lives, but whether or not we've done it, but now I hydrate more than I ever used to, and I've got into that habit, so that makes me healthier. There's also the thing about reducing the amount of alcohol that you drink. Now, I've never been a huge drinker, but if I have 1 or 2 glasses of wine now, I really feel it the next day. And that is a recognised thing in menopause. Sorry, folks, but so I don't drink very often, which again is good for your body because alcohol is a toxin. Let's face it. But there are some really nice no alcohol options out there. You should also get out into the fresh air and walk, and that is really good for you, especially in terms of your mental well-being and also your physically, because obviously your body changes, unfortunately. I had this horrendous mass. I call it the barrel belly because that is so again, if you can get into the habit of doing that, again, that's better for you. If you can try and reduce your stress, because raised cortisol levels has an impact upon this barrel belly. So, addressing all these things is a positive that comes from menopause because, when you're younger, you tend to you're just focusing on working and paying for things. And I'm not downgrading that at all because I've been there. But now my view of things is completely different. And that has been to a large extent due to the menopause. So, yeah, I think it's important to understand it, get the right help, adopt lifestyle changes that are going to make things easier for you. And then that will make it at the next phase a more positive experience. Because it's happening. Even women who have very few menopause symptoms, it's still happening to their body. All the hormones are reducing. And do you want me to tell you about the long-term effects of menopause? Because this could be quite depressing.
No,
you don't. Okay.
This is where the part comes in. And I know this would be very informative for a lot of people listening, watching in. I also feel like, because like I told you, I'd rather not know that much about it and the downsides of it, even though I know I can never avoid it fully. I also feel like it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
I can always I can always see myself as healthy from certain aspects. And it's so
Yeah.
interesting because you mentioned HRT. And I remember when I got diagnosed with menopause, the lady asked me, "Do you want to go on HRT?" I'm like, probably not, because I feel okay at the moment. And
Uh-huh.
that was about, wow, now it's going to be about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've gone without so far. And if I can do that, if I can
Yeah.
support my body in other kind of ways, I prefer to do it that way.
That's it. Every woman is different.
Yeah.
Everybody's experience is different. Also, their belief set, their values is different.
Hmm.
And, bodies react in different ways to different things. So I just want to make women aware of the options so
Hmm.
that they're informed. And then if they do go down the medical route, they can actually, they potentially could know more than the medical profession they're speaking to, because historically the medical profession, GPs, get very little training in the menopause,
I mean, it's
which
such
is,
a, yeah. 'Cause
it's,
it's go on, sorry.
I was just going to say it's horrendous, because I mean we make up 51% of the population, and if you think about the huge number of women who are out there who working, and who are whether they're in senior positions or not, and it's having an impact upon their well-being. They really do, medical profession really do need to get on top of it, and but before they do that, it's our responsibility as women to get informed. And I've always been really bad at getting informed about anything.
Yeah, I totally believe there's, like you mentioned earlier, about an overflow of information. That's for sure. There's
Mm,
so much out there, and finding the one that suits you or works for you is key.
hmm
I also feel like the other part of that would be you tend to overdiagnose yourself with a lot of things. I mean, it's so interesting because you said that too. You mentioned that too before you knew it was all to do with menopause. You thought it was this and it was that and it was the other.
mm,
So the mind tends to do that, you want to grasp at everything that's
that's it.
out there.
And yeah, I mean, I'm not a hypochondriac, but I was turning into one, because I just didn't know what was happening to me.
Hmm.
And it's interesting that oftentimes women can identify something happening in their body, and they don't realize it is related to the menopause. So, for instance, one of the latest things that it's been spoken about is frozen shoulder, because we have estrogen receptors throughout our body. And as the estrogen level reduces, then obviously that's going to have an impact on potentially any part of our body. So, yeah, and if you can get things under control with respect to the menopause, that can have a impact upon so many different things.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a fascinating topic, in that as I say, I've learned a huge amount about it, and I just want to inform other women so that they're not floundering around in the dark.
Yeah, I
Um,
totally get it. I totally get it.
and I'm also thinking about educating men about it as well,
Mm,
because it's not just partners of women, it could be work colleagues, it could be brothers, it could be sons, just being able to support the women in their life and understand why they go into raging bull mode, or they suddenly decide, I don't want to socialize, I don't want to go out tonight. There's a reason for that.
it's so interesting because I feel like this conversation would probably start, especially when it comes to educating men about it, would start with the periods first of all, because I
Yeah.
feel like it has been for a very long time such a taboo subject,
um,
and in particular for men, and it's so interesting because I found myself talking to one of my boys actually about,
yeah.
he's 11, so he's not like but in my head it's like 11 is old enough for him to know about what a period is,
Yeah.
and he's got a little sister and she's not far off maybe starting her period, and I'm thinking, well, there's this whole thing of people saying that they teach them at school, they teach them at school about this and sexual life and everything. I'm like, why would I want my kids to learn from school if I can teach them myself?
Yeah.
And I know maybe I don't have any qualifications about it and whatever not, but I don't feel it's gonna I feel like it's gonna be beneficial for them to know, and that
Yeah.
the information somehow coming from a more loving place rather than school and it being like, "Oh, let's laugh about it and whatever." I don't know, because kids are kids.
Yeah.
And then of course the other part of what you just said, I feel like if a lot of it's so interesting because it's women as well, women understanding themselves, then men understanding women when they go through all the changes. I feel like it would be such a completely different conversation that people would have in their homes to start with about what's going on internally, and communication would be different, and understanding would be at another level if we all openly spoke about it, and understood
Yeah.
ourselves more to start with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got two boys and a daughter, and my boys have been talking about the menopause a lot, and
Hmm.
I've been very open with my children, age appropriate information,
Of course.
and I think they are they're pretty informed. And I think when the children get older as well, beyond the primary school age, they tend to see more on social media, and it's quite frightening actually, some of the stuff that they see, but they do seem to be far more informed about things than I ever was, growing up.
Hmm.
And I honestly believe that um, for men to understand what women are going through would be hugely beneficial when it comes to relationships.
Hmm.
Because I don't know the figures, but there is a large number of relationships that break down during the menopause years. So yeah, it shouldn't be taboo, because it's a fact of life. Even younger women need to be aware of it, because it's going to happen to them eventually.
I mean,
And
it's mine started at 34. So how young could you be? It's so interesting because, like you said, it
yeah,
could be any age. It could be. I know there's so many cases that I've seen or heard of that started their menopause in their 20s, which is extreme cases of, and I
mm,
feel like that's another kind of branch of whatever menopause is, but
mm,
it can happen at any age for sure. And
yeah,
like you said, you can only know so much, you can only be prepared so much, but still, having the information does.
yeah. Oh, it sets you free, basically.
Hmm.
And then, obviously the other aspect that I'm really interested in is enabling women to take time out for themselves and get creative with me, because I always say to people, it's not about the quality of what you're producing. It's about the process. It's about just taking that time out. And when you menopause, you can lose a huge amount of confidence. And if creating something that really boosts your self-esteem.
Do you feel like your life has slowed down a little bit ever since you've gone through all these changes and while doing the things that you do now?
Um, my life is completely different
Mm.
to how it was previously. In that I'm being more creative than I've been for a long time.
Hmm.
Um, and my values have changed. I've never been a materialistic person, but having stuff isn't my focus now. I'm actually really excited about the future, and I'm not ready to retire and slow down. I know that there's still a lot of good stuff to come. I'm passionate about what I do. So yeah, I'm not as energetic as I used to. I used to be quite sporty, so that's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. But I think once you've found what you're really passionate about, that that you're meant to be doing, you're not filling your life with other stuff to fill the gaps. And
Mm-hmm.
I know historically I used to do that, but now I'm satisfied with what I've got. I've got my passion,
Yeah.
um, and it just makes such a big difference.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like maybe I didn't express myself correctly with the slowing down part, because I was thinking like the process that you do, especially when it comes to art, you can't rush art, you know? So I'm feeling, I think
No.
that the way that I was maybe more trying to ask the question was in when it comes to mindfulness, let's say, you know, because I imagine that
Uh-huh.
art kind of slows you down from that perspective, you know, and being more present in the moment with
Uh-huh.
what you're doing rather than rushing around and not being aware of what's happening around you and things like that. So, but I understand the other perspective too, you know, because there's that thing that a lot of people are like, okay, I'm gonna start settling down now and relaxing a bit more. And just like you,
Uh-huh.
I don't believe that there's a certain age where things are gonna just start going downhill somehow. You know, you can always have
Yeah,
spirit and doing the things that you love, and it can always present itself like your passion. Discovering your passion or your purpose, let's say, can happen later on in life, which sounds like is what's happened with you. What were you doing before, by the way, before you find
definitely.
your passion? What were you doing before?
So, so I qualified to teach in further education to be a business studies teacher
Nice.
or lecturer, and then I came up to Scotland immediately after that, and I actually went into the corporate world in the financial services sector. And I was training people to use computer systems and writing, supporting documentation, writing courses. And I did that for 20 years. And the last role I was in for 13 years. And my job kind of it expanded horizontally. I was getting involved in lots of exciting projects, and I got to be creative to an extent. I was writing documentation, I was guides, I did testing for computer systems. And then the children came along. I was made redundant. I had a cafe and catering business for 3 years. And then I've kind of had breaks to look after the children.
Hmm.
So yeah, I from a training background, a course development background, so that serves me well with what I'm doing now.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
in terms of art, I I wasn't allowed to study it at school. My dad wouldn't let me do any qualifications in art. I've doodled on and off over the years in pencil from photographs of mainly my dogs, actually.
Hmm.
I've always thought, oh, that's not proper art because I'm copying from a photograph. Well,
Hmm.
that's what I do now. I paint from a photograph of my pet portraits, ironically. And then I suppose people started saying, well, actually, well, the pet portraits really was a turning point because people were saying, I like those. Because what happened? Let me rewind. So with my art, as I say, it was 2 years ago, towards the end of lockdown, I watched this tutorial on how to paint a flower with watercolours. And I thought, I've got some watercolours that were my mum's. She wasn't an artist, but she'd done a calligraphy course and she used the paints to illustrate. So I thought, I'm going to I'm going to do that. And it actually turned out really well. I thought, wow, I quite like this watercolour effect. So then I thought, right, I'm going to paint a dog. So I painted a dog from a photograph, and again, it looked decent. And then a wee while after that, I saw on a Facebook group her dog was seriously ill. Well, in fact, it was terminally ill, and she was looking for somebody to photograph her dog and to pamper it. And I thought, I need to paint that dog.
Hmm.
So I painted the dog for her, and I gifted her the portrait, and she was delighted. And we've stayed friends actually. And then I put another advert, or I just put a post on, said, would anybody else like me to paint their dog or their pet? Excuse me. And I got quite a few requests. So I thought, oh, must be okay at this. So then that was how I know it's all no planning, typical Andrea. That's how my business, Sasha and Friends, started, because the ill dog that I painted was called Sasha.
Oh, wow.
And I've painted lots of pets since. Dogs, I suppose, are my speciality, but cats, horses, guinea pigs, rabbits.
Wow. Do you have any
And I love
paintings,
it.
by the way?
I
Do
love
you
it.
have any of your art at hand to show me? That's so curious.
I don't actually. I don't. I've got a Facebook page called Sasha and Friends, so you're very welcome to have a look. A lot of people say to me, "Oh, Andrew, you should charge more for your pet portraits." But for me, I get a lot of joy from creating them.
Mm-hmm.
But I also love the joy that my portraits bring people. Yeah, I really enjoy the pet portraits that I do. But then that was when I realised this is what I'm going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
It all kind of slotted into place. But I realised that you've got to be really, really lucky to some extent and very commercial to make a career out of art, and earn enough money to pay your bills. So I thought, well, how can I still use it? And that's when, as I say, Menopause-Art came about.
It's interesting because you said you had no planning around it. And in my head it's like, but sometimes the best things come out without the planning, because we can have
Yeah.
so many ideas of, oh, we want to do this and we want to create that, and how am I going to do it? We think it's all up
Mm.
to us. Sometimes there's some other divine intervention out there that's like, oh, hold on a minute, I'm going to
Oh,
show you. So I totally feel like that was where your magic kind of lied in the fact of, well, I'm actually good at this and this looks kind of cool and I actually enjoy doing this. So yeah, the universe is going to give you more of that. I totally believe in this.
yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because because I wrote my story as a co-author of the #1 best-selling book that I'm delighted to have collaborated on, and in that I talk about how the universe came into play in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this was 2 to 2.5 years ago, because there were 3 women that came into my life. There was the documentary I watched about the menopause.
Mm-hmm.
Then my friend had been saying that she thought she had ADHD. So this woman, American lady, was advertising a free course, and I went on it. And I worked out that I've got ADHD. Not that I wanted to be like my friend, but it just, everything again clicked into place. I thought, that's why I've had the chat. And the book we've written is all about the link between creativity and neurodiversity. So that was that. And then I met the creative business coach online. It was a free thing online I signed up to, and I thought, I need to work with this lady. And, together we started talking about what I wanted to do with my art, and then it came up with the idea of Menopause-Art. So yeah, the universe is so powerful, but you've got to be open to those things happening. If you're closed off, it's not going to happen. So yeah, so a lot has happened in a very short space of time, but I'm so pleased that it has.
I think what you said just there about having to be open, or having that openness towards whatever is out there, is important, because
Mm-hmm.
where the planning kind of gets in the way sometimes. I find that
Mm-hmm.
we plan so much and we want things to happen in a certain way, but by planning we stop all the other magic that could possibly, which sounds to me like that's what
Uh-huh.
happened to you. It's like, oh, there's this lady here that I want to work with her, or I want to try this, or I want to try that.
Yeah.
That's how everything just clicked into place for you, which I love how the magic happens. And it's funny, you're Andrea Clare, right? And one of the ladies that's in,
Yes.
it's Beyond the Ordinary, right, is the book. Is that the book?
Yeah. Beyond the Ordinary: Discover the Power of Creative and Neurodiverse Women.
Yeah, because the first lady that reached out to me out of this group of people, because you amazing ladies that wrote in there, I think you're the third person that I'm interviewing from that book, which is great in my.
Uh-huh.
The
Yeah.
first lady was called Claire, which is so funny. Like, to me, it's like, oh,
Yes.
this
Yeah.
is the second Claire that I'm having here. Is Claire your middle name or your surname, by the way?
Yeah. Claire's my middle name, and it's been so underused in my life.
Mm.
And I just love the combination that my mum and dad picked for me. So that's why my business is Andrea Clare Art, because I just want to be able to use that name.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I know the Claire that you're talking about, and we launched the book it was this month. Gosh, this month's whizzed by.
Mm.
We launched it on Friday the 10th of October, and we were at an event down in Bolton. Not all the authors were there. It was a social media event,
Mm-hmm.
and in the evening, a group of the authors read their stories. And I was the first one to read my story. I was just about to go up, and we got the news that the book had gone to #1 on Amazon. So, I mean, it was such a magical day. And Claire, I think she came on after me actually and read her story, because all our stories are so different, but there are common themes through them. So that was a truly magical day. So
Mm-hmm.
exciting. Yeah, it was an honour to be able to read my story, and it did evoke emotion in the audience, which was lovely. And hopefully it will go on to inspire other women.
Is that on Amazon at the moment, by the way? Is the book on?
Yes, so it was launched a Kindle
Mm-hmm.
version, but now you can get the paperback and the hardback on Amazon.
That's amazing.
And I'll send you the link. I'll send you
Yes.
the link. I'm working my way through the book actually, because it's not just the stories of 30 women. Mandy, who was my business coach, she's written the chapters because she'd identified 30 characteristics of creative women.
Mm.
So Vincent's spontaneity, which is me. And so she's written about those characteristics, and she's come up with sort of tips and tricks on how you can make things easier for yourself, particularly when you're in business. So yeah, so it's a really powerful read, but it's genuinely a self-help book. So yeah, it was lovely to be part of it. And there's more books to come from me. I've always known I would write a book.
So what would your book be about,
So
by the way? What would you write it about?
well, I've got so many different ideas. This is the thing, again, with an ADHD brain, you have all these ideas. I've had a lot of interesting experiences in life, and I've, not just, menopause and being able to help women with that, but things like adopting children, having parents have gone through dementia. And I wouldn't make it, doom and gloom. It would be all positive and upbeat. It would have illustrations. I've written some poems along the way as well.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm just kind of, I've got all these ideas, as I say.
Yeah.
It's just sort of formulating them.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
I'm
I've
sure
got
that would
lots of
come,
things that I want to do.
yeah, I'm sure that would come about in a really magical way, especially considering how you described everything else that's happened for you so far. I'm sure this will come
Yeah.
about in such a magical way whenever the time is right for it. Yeah.
Yes. And, it's okay as well to change direction and maybe for your ideas to take a slightly different path, because one of the things that I do is I paint mandalas. I've already mentioned that. And I was actually thinking about this yesterday. I'm setting up my shop and everything as we speak, because these are quite a new addition to my artistic collection. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking I could have a mandala calendar, and I could have buy a mandala a month, like a subscription thing. Well, I've never ever thought of that before. So yes, nothing is fixed in stone.
Yeah.
Things are evolving.
Yeah, and that's life, right? Things are malleable and they can just
Yeah, definitely.
expand in different things. And I love that. I love that you have the
Yes,
openness to whatever ideas pop up, and it's fun because some of them might come to life, some of them may not, or some of them might have a combination of
that's
whatever.
right.
So where can people find you if they
It's
want
all
to work with you? If any women that are
so.
going through menopause and or just want to paint mandalas,
So I've got a website, and it's called Andrea Clare
Yeah.
Art.uk. The Claire is without an I.
Mhm.
And then predominantly I use Facebook. So I'm on there as Andrea Clare and also Andrea Clare Art. And if people connect with me and they're interested in joining my free support community, then they're very, very welcome. And that's all about, it's called the Menopause Artist helping women understand and navigate the menopause. So it's all about information about art. So tonight, for instance, I go live on a Wednesday night, and I'm looking at doodling, the benefits of doodling. And I also do things about the menopause as well. So yeah. But no, the main is my website, AndreaClareArt.com.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna add all this in the show notes for everybody to just click the link and get there
Okay.
straight up. And I'll look you up on Facebook
Thank
too, to be
you.
honest, because I want to see. I want to see all
Yes,
your magic. Yeah.
let's connect on Facebook, and I'll
For
direct
sure.
you to my pages.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for bringing your magic into the world and for following through with your intuitions, and your guidance and whatever's coming through to you, I love that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for speaking to me today. It's been really enjoyable.
Thank you very much. Well, have a great rest of your day.
Yeah.
And I'll look you up.
You too. Yeah, me too. Okay, then. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Bye.